Man City have signed midfielder Nico Gonzalez from Porto, and it is a massive fee as well. €60 million for this transfer fee for the 23-year-old. Lots to talk about here. Fifth signing of the transfer window for them. We have Mark Ogden joining us now to talk more transfers. Luis Garcia is still with us though, and I want to start with you, Luis, because this is a player who started out at Barcelona. Tell us more about him.
Yeah, definitely, and started very well. He's a player who's got that physicality, and I think that when we saw the link between the player and Manchester City, we straight away thought about the replacement, and Rodri, it could be right there because his style of play is very similar. He's a holding midfielder who can create, has got the ability to go box to box. He can score goal, assist, but also give you the work. We saw him also for Valencia player. But we didn't see that consistency. That probably is because he was very young, he was lack of experiences, he was struggling to adapt to a team that at that point already was having problems. So in the moment he arrived to Porto, the situation totally changed. He felt confident, he felt important into the game. Today we saw the stats, 7 goals and 5 assists in 25 games for Porto. And right now he's a player that we can say that because of the experience, and I think the option that they gave him in Porto have had the price and the words of Pep Guardiola and their team to try to replace that big gap that Rodri has left into that team, because so far we've seen that City is struggling so much more in those kind of transitions, and at the moment they need a player that can be. We need to wait and see how Nico kind of connect and adapt to the Premier League, but definitely a player who is going to give a lot of good moments to Manchester City in the coming future.
We've spent a fortune, haven't we?
Yes, they have. In fact, it's the second biggest outlay worldwide in January window history, behind Chelsea of 2023.
So what are they going to do? What does this say about, and we know we've seen Marmoush play already, we saw him play, for those that haven't, he was very productive at Eintracht Frankfurt. Young Kusanov came in, he's clearly a very good player, but he had a tough debut, but he is a youngster. But what does this mean for Rodri? When Rodri's fit for next season, they're going to play both players, or is that a signal that it's just they're panicking at the moment and they need to get somebody, or is it a signal that when Rodri is fit, he might be venturing back to pastures old, which would be back to Spain and possibly Real Madrid, which has been talked about? So, interesting stuff from City, but I kind of think it tells you where their season's been going.
Are these signings because of the season they're having, or are these players that they had already
earmarked
and they've just decided that rather than wait to the end of the season, we're going to do it now because it doesn't have smell of a little bit of panic? The great clubs in City included in that, they would add a little piece, and that's what they've done over the last 7 or 8 years, and all of a sudden they go and throw 5 in. That smells of a little bit of anxiety to me.
These are great questions for a person like Mark Ogden, who is actually here on the panel with us right now. What's going to happen when Rodri's back? Why are they spending so much in a January transfer window? Tell us, Oggy.
Well, I mean, they're spending so much because they didn't spend enough last summer or the summer before, so they are playing catch up a little bit. And I do think that if and when Rodri's fit, they can't just rely on Rodri. I mean, we've seen this season that Gundogan's past it, Kevin De Bruyne is too old now, they haven't got the options or the legs in midfield, Bernardo Silva, another one, so they need more bodies. Calvin Phillips might come back from his loan at Ipswich, but he won't play, so they need an extra body in midfield, so I think it's a sensible signing no matter what the situation with Rodri. And in terms of why they're spending so much money now, well, one thing the guys haven't mentioned is the 115 charges. We're expecting a resolution to that at some point in the next few weeks, maybe a month or two, but at some point the Premier League will come back and say they've either been found guilty or not, and if they are found guilty, they're going to have to find a way to rebuild a squad without potentially money to spend, or no matter what division they're in. So they're basically preparing ahead for that. If the worst comes to the worst, they've got players in. But the players they brought in, they're all young and untested, aren't they? I know Marmoush had a good start. He started well for City, but Kuznov didn't start very well. There's a few gambles there. These aren't the players they used to sign 5 or 6 years ago, the ready-made players. So they are taking gambles, but that is because of the situation they're in, whereby they've left it a little bit too late. Man City had never had to rely on 4 or 5 signings in the transfer window in January. The last time I remember this happening was when Mark Hughes was in charge and Sheikh Mansour taking over back in 2008-9. They were buying lots of players just to bolster the squad. So it's unusual for City to do this, but there are a few reasons why they're doing it. But primarily, they need players in before the charges are heard, and they need players in now because they're not playing very well.
One of the interesting things is bringing these players in, albeit, as Oggy said, that maybe some of them are a little bit untested or inexperienced, not them all, is that they've got this run of games coming up which are as tough as it sort of gets in terms of the Premier League and the Champions League. This adds an extra pressure, I think, on Guardiola to get better results. Because at the moment, the blame has been, well, I haven't got this, and I haven't got that, I haven't got this, and the full-back, and blah, blah, blah. He's beefed the squad up here.
Right.
So there's less excuses if they don't start picking up and continue to get, like the 5-1 walloping they got at the weekend, or the drubbing they got eventually in Paris. You know, the excuses have sort of diminished somewhat, dramatically, I think.
I'm not so sure. I mean, the people behind the scenes are football people, and we all know that when you're bringing in 4, 5 and 6 players and then all of a sudden they're in the team, we know that there's going to be teething problems if you're lucky. And Man City, when they step on the field, are expected to be the Man City of the last 3 and 4 years that they won the Premier League title and got to the semi-final and final as a Champions League. So I would like to think...
I think there's somewhere halfway in between,
right.
Stevie, where
I would like to think there's an understanding that, yes, we've brought in players, and yes, you've got to realise they're inexperienced, but you've also got to remember that if we're going to throw 4 guys in, it's not going to be plain sailing.
No, but my point is, I don't think anybody expects them to go from where they are to be the Man City that have been dominant. But I think they've got to find a happy medium where they're not the Man City that, in a lot of games, could be losing 5 and 6 goals and just basically not having the ability to control a game. So I think they have to find somewhere. It's going to clearly take time to get somewhere close to where they were before, indeed if they even get back that far. But they have to be, with spending this money, they still have to be in the short term better than they've been recently.